So my name is Michael Fischer. I am a senior manager at Jobs for the Future Center for Justice and Economic Advancement, where we work on building education and employment pathways for currently and formerly incarcerated people. My journey to my current role, I think really starts right after I got out of prison. I didn't have access to higher ed in prison. The prison where I was locked up had no higher ed programming at the time. And so I came out really looking to find a way back to school. To make a really long story short, that was really messy. It had a lot of stops and starts, but eventually I was able to earn my bachelor's degree and then earned a master's degree. And then the hope was that I had gotten into a PhD program on a fellowship, and I was going to go there and I was going to be teaching and I was going to get a stipend. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I'm going to have a stipend and health insurance. I went and found an apartment down by the school. And then I think it was like a month before I was supposed to start, I actually got disinvited from the PhD program because since I was going to be there as a fellow and I was going to be teaching, that made me an employee. And so the department knew all about my record because it was all over my application, but HR did not know that. And so when HR was evaluating me as a potential employee, they said, wait a minute, this person can't come here and teach. And of course, my whole fellowship was predicated on that. And so that kind of created a cascade where lost the funding, lost the fellowship, lost the offer, and ended up with essentially with nothing at that point. And so I ended up being able to salvage a different offer to get a second master's degree, which was just kind of my way of trying to touch ground again and get my bearings after that experience. Well, I spent 5 years working in higher ed administration after that, and then ended up in my current role at JFF, working with currently and formerly incarcerated people because I can relate to that experience, and I want to give back and all of that. But I think in a lot of ways that actually gives me too much credit, because the truth is, doing this type of work was not the first or the second or the third or the fourth thing that I tried to do when I got out. I wanted to work with animals, but I couldn't because I was getting background checked really heavily when I would try to even volunteer around animals, because I guess they thought I was going to, abuse the animals or try to start a dogfighting ring or whatever they thought was going to happen. I wanted to be a teacher, right? I wanted to be a professor, and then I got disinvited from that program and I couldn't pursue that anymore. And so there are all these ways in which I kind of tried to make other lives, and then this ended up being the space where I felt like I could make an impact and would be somewhat welcome, and where that lived experience could be useful and could be an asset instead of just being a liability. There are a lot of formerly incarcerated folks who are doing amazing work, and sometimes it can get lost that that might not necessarily have been the work they were initially called to do. It's just where they can fit. And I think the work that we're doing at JFF and the work that we're doing at the Center for Justice and Economic Advancement is really trying to make those type of stories a thing of the past, so that the ways in which people are re-engaging with education and re-engaging with the workforce are the ones that they chose, and not just the one that they thought they could find a way into because it was the one place they thought that would be welcome. I have friends who have gone years into master's programs, PhD programs, and then found out at the very end of that, oh, actually, we're not even willing to license you in this field. Oh, actually, there's no chance of you ever being employed in this field. So, talk about an opportunity cost. That is so much lost time. That's just an inefficient system, right? Those are the type of inefficiencies that are costing all of us money, costing all of us time, that we have a real chance to get rid of. Some of those frustrating barriers in this space are the ones that are just really small, and I think everyone can agree it's just like a common sense bad idea, but we need everyone involved to be at the same table working on it to actually get rid of it. So JFF sees our role as really coming in and trying to make those spaces efficient, get everyone talking. The Center for Justice and Economic Advancement is about to launch something that we're calling Fair Chance to Advance, which is an initiative that's going to go into 4 states across the country and really do deep state-based work with every stakeholder in that state and really get everyone in that state on the same page, pointed in the same direction. And the exciting thing about that is that it will create state-level models that folks can then point to say look, they did it. Because so often in this space, we get confronted with, well, that's impossible. We could never do that. We could never have internet access for incarcerated people. We could never have, a full-on, 4-year degree program or even multiple programs in our facility. We could never do this. We could never do that. But when you have models to point to say well, they did it and the sky hasn't fallen, so it must be possible, then that kind of has a downstream effect where now everything that supposedly wasn't on the table a minute ago is now back on the table, because it's oh, actually this all is possible. But all of that just comes from believing that you can, believing that it's even possible. And then all these things become fixable. They're all manageable. We can do all of this. We'll really know we've gotten somewhere in this space when you're able to just come out of prison and just have a normal everyday job. You can come out and just be an accountant, be a chiropractor, right? Do something simple. You don't have to come out and be executive director of your own organization and change the whole world. That's incredible. And if you want to do that, you absolutely should. But you shouldn't have to. That shouldn't be the bar that's being set for people coming home, that you have to be somehow superhuman. And so we're just really trying to, again, lift up those models of where it's going really well, not places where it's going perfectly, places where it's going really well, to really try to inspire leaders across the space to get involved and try to have their own model.